I do not like to paint minis. It takes so long in a world where playing board games already requires scheduling a bunch of people together on top of learning all the rules. And if I want colored minis, I gotta add like a few hours per mini? Nah, miss me with that weak shit. Problem is, I love minis, and there's tons of Kickstarter games that love minis too. But I only love the minis if they do got them colors. Otherwise, I generally prefer standees. Now, because I actually play like 90% of the board games I got, and a lot of them multiple times at that, it's hard to fit in time for mini painting. Because I want my relationship with board games to be where the vast majority of time spent with them is actually playing the games and minimizing the time spent doing meta auxiliary stuff like rules and organization. As you might be able to guess, painting minis is not playing the board game, and I don't want to spend that much time on it. Enter Speedpaints. And man, they live up to the name. You have no idea how much I love these things. So much so that this isn't even sponsored by them, and I'm shilling them hard. But you know who we are sponsored by? Game Theory Tables. You want to make your game nights even more awesome? Game Theory Tables got you. Look at this absolutely majestic Origins table. Unironically, my favorite board game table out of everything we've been sent. They love board gaming and want to bring that joy to all you folks out there with tables made for board gaming. Use our link and code SHELFSIDE to get your own table and a free custom layout. Plus, directly support the channel so we can keep making great content. Back to the video. When I first learned how to paint minis, this all started with Gloomhaven because I was sick of looking at the gray minis, and I figured, hey, if this is a big campaign game that I'm going to be playing quite literally 100 times more than other board games, I might as well paint the minis. We also got a video on that, by the way. I literally knew nothing about painting minis and was using Ashton's really old high school era painting gear. I bring that experience up because back then I legitimately thought that you could just treat mini painting like a coloring book and it would turn out fine. I thought that doing anything beyond that was for actual hobbyists who want to play around with shading and lighting. I just want my minis tabletop ready. No need for any crazy detailing or fancy painting techniques. Well, nope. Turns out that if all you do is slap on some colors and call it a day, you get this goofy pastel child art project look. There's actually a name for this. It's called base coating. Yeah, it turns out if you want minis to not look like cheap plastic toys, you're supposed to do a lot more than just base coat coloring book it. You also throw on a wash, which is taking an entirely different type of paint that's super watery and slathering it on so the water pools in the recesses and causes shading. Then you do highlighting, which is going back and painting over the raised parts to really make them pop out now that there's actually darker parts from the wash. So I'm doing that, and sure, my minis are coming out better, but I really started to hate painting because now every mini is taking like 3+ hours to do. Probably closer to 4 if you include all the setup and brush cleaning and deciding what colors to use. On top of having to wait in between steps for the paint to dry. And I'm not even doing edge highlighting with an actual brush because apparently you're supposed to painstakingly do every single raised edge individually, and that can take even more hours. I'm just doing dry brushing, which is taking a big fat brush and wiping off most of the paint so that it's basically dry and just wiping it all over the raised edges with that. Don't know why it works. I guess it's because the bristles only get enough friction to wipe off the paint particles onto raised edges, and since you didn't actually load up the brush with paint, it's not gonna ever run dumb pigments into the recesses. Point is, I'm still looking for shortcuts because, again, I just want colored minis that don't look doo-doo, not looking to actually get into the art project side of this. Which made it really hard to look up painting advice I actually wanted on YouTube because every single beginner guide out there was about teaching you the tools to ease you into getting nitty-gritty. But I couldn't find anything that was just like, here's how you paint a mini to not look like trash as fast as possible. Closest thing I found was like someone talking about how they painted with only washes, which I was heavily considering doing. But then Army Painter released their speed paints out in the wild, I want to say like 2 years ago, and this was a game changer for me. One coat and done, all in one base coat, wash, and highlighting solution. Dude, this sounds way too good to be true. Turns out, it's facts. No printer, no cap. Also, it turns out there already was something like this called contrast paints from Games Workshop, but as a guy who didn't know anything about painting, how the hell was I supposed to know if every single newcomer thing doesn't mention it? Meanwhile, speed paint, it's in the name. And I probably would have never bought contrast paints anyways because goddamn, that price tag is thick. Point is, Army Painter Speedpaints have turned my desires of one coat coloring book painting into a reality. And if there are any of you out there like me that don't want to actually get good at painting and just want your landslide of Kickstarter minis colored and tabletop ready, I cannot recommend Army Painter Speedpaints enough. Yeah, thanks to Speedpaints, I'm finally willing to do something like painting every single mini in a big dumb Kickstarter board game like Wonderland's War. Painting all 19 minis took me somewhere between 15 and 20 hours, I think. I spent like 4 afternoons on it, and honestly a huge chunk of that time was like picking colors and cleaning brushes / paint palettes. Each mini took like 30 minutes to an hour to do, and this was my first time painting a ton of minis instead of just one at a time for whatever character I'm playing in whatever big campaign game at the moment. The quality of these speed paint jobs, to me at least, feels pretty much just as good as other minis I've spent 4 times as long on, and I'm just so impressed at how quickly speed paints get something tabletop ready without looking whack. However, the current speed still doesn't feel good enough for me. I want each mini done in 10 minutes or less, including auto setup plus preparation. I'm confident I can get this down even faster because the speed bottleneck I'm running into isn't even entirely the actual painting, which I'm sure is only like 2/3 of the time spent. So here's some workflow improvements I got in mind for the next time I do this, because I implemented these like halfway through the Wonderlands war painting. For starters, picking colors takes forever, so to speed this up, I painted all the bottle caps for easy reference, which is especially great since it's kind of hard to tell exactly how the paints are going to look just from seeing the label. And FYI, I know the instructions recommend painting over something you prime white, which basically just means you do an initial coat of paint that you then actually paint over because it helps the paint stick to the mini for both ease of painting and durability. But honestly, painting over something gray like the bottle caps looks fine to me. Hell, I've even stopped priming minis altogether after watching Goobertown Hobby's video on whether or not priming actually helps durability, because newsflash, it doesn't really, and I can't personally tell the difference if there's an ease of painting factor between primed and unprimed minis. The only time I prime is with a technique called zenithal priming, where you prime black and then dry brush gray, then white over it to give it shading, and I only do that on the ones that I actually want to look a little better. But again, I want to paint a ton of minis fast, so I really want most of them to be a process of grab it, one coat, done. No waiting for something to dry, no priming, no shading, no highlighting. Next, to cut down on constantly cleaning a brush when switching colors, I decided to buy a 100 pack of cheap crappy brushes, which have served me just as well these expensive natural hair brushes that were like $12 each and totally not worth it because I can't really tell what makes them better. And one of them came with its bristles spread out instead of forming a tip. I don't know, bought them thinking they would make painting easier or something, but honestly, it's pretty much just a skill issue. You just gotta learn how to steady your brush strokes with better technique, get yourself a steady position, and a good grip on the mini, which I'm sure I'm not the greatest at because I can't go fast and steady. Anyways, by having a ton of brushes, instead of having to painstakingly clean off all of the paint whenever I'm switching colors, I can instead do a half-assed job of rinsing the brush and leaving it on a paper towel before just getting a different brush for a different color and cleaning all of them at once when I'm done. Obviously, this doesn't keep a brush as healthy as constantly cleaning it, but honestly, I still haven't even gotten to the point of needing to actually throw out a brush yet from frayed bristles, so these 100 brushes I got for like $7 are gonna last a long time. And finally, I just got this silicone fidget popper to replace my plastic palettes, because instead of having to constantly clean these out, the fidget popper lets you literally pop out the paint once it dries. Plus, you can use it both sides for tons of painting uptime. So ultimately, I'm pretty goddamn excited to actually paint a shitload of minis now. Thinking next I'll do my Tainted Grail minis once the 2.0 rules rolls around and see just how fast I can get it done. And for any of you who think you suck at painting but want painted minis, dude, this shit is pure liquid talent. You gotta try it out. You don't even have to take the time to paint a bunch of details different colors. Like this dude on Reddit only spent like 6 hours on their Wonderlands War minis with simpler color schemes, and that still looks really good to me. Or fuck it, only use one color like this other Reddit person. That still looks a poppin' as hell. Army Painter also got a bunch of different set sizes too if you want to try out a small set and then go big if you like it, which is sort of what I did because I started with the original mega set. Really wanted more colors, so then I got the 2.0 mega set. And apparently, anything that says 2.0 is an upgraded formula that took into account feedback from people and content creators online. I haven't noticed the differences myself, and I think it only really matters if you're gonna go even further and do actual painting techniques over the initial speed paint coat. Also, be sure to look around if you want cheaper prices, because like I was able to get the 2.0 mega set for $140 instead of the actual $200 MSRP. Love the value of getting each bottle at less than $3 each. That's it for this non-sponsored yet also sponsored video. If you want to support us, there's a patreon.com/shelfside and our merch store at shelfside.co. Also, we got YouTube memberships now too if you want to customize your comments with badges and stickers and whatnot. Thank you all, and goodbye.